Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to the ROKER Report podcast in association with the Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen, where we once again look forward to a trip to Wembley, and hopefully this time we can enjoy the game as well as everything else that comes with a trip to Wembley. And in terms of winning at Wembley in a Sunderland shirt, who better to talk to in the build-up than not only one of an exclusive club of former Sunderland players who have experienced a victory at the National Stadium, but also one of only 3 captains to have done so in our history. He was only at Sunderland for 3 years, but experienced 2 different club owners, 3 different managers, 2 playoff campaigns and 3 finals at Wembley, all during 137 appearances for the club. So we are very pleased to be speaking to Max Power. Hello, Max.
Thanks for having me on, Chris. Yeah, that was an eventful 3 years. I've never ever heard it in that format. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me there was that much going on.
I was going through it earlier, and I couldn't. When I was reeling them all off, I was going, bloody hell, all that happened in 3 years. But it was an eventful 3 years. But thanks again for joining us. And first of all, I suppose, congratulations on winning the League One title this year with Wigan Athletic. Are the celebrations still going strong, or has it calmed down a bit now?
It's calmed down a bit now, Chris. Yeah, obviously we had a trip to Vegas once the season finished, so we got away with the lads. And then, to be honest, I'm happy to see the back of them. You spend that much time with the team for the season. That obviously we had a really good campaign, but it's always nice to get away and then obviously now just enjoy some family time and enjoy some time off.
Yeah. And actually, during those celebrations, I think I saw you pictured with Charlie Wyke, and obviously I hope he's doing okay now. And I think all Sunderland fans will echo that. We hope he's continuing to recover well, and we wish him all the best.
Yeah, Charlie's in a really good place now. He's had a horrendous 6 months, Chris. I mean, I don't think anyone will ever quite gauge what went on without being there, but it was as plain and simple as he basically died in front of us. Collapsed, hit the deck, wasn't breathing, no pulse. So as you can imagine, it was a pretty traumatic experience for everyone, not just myself, the whole squad and players, and obviously Charlie himself. Obviously, I know he was unaware of what was going on until he woke back up. Thankfully, he did. But that was down to obviously, fair play to Liam Richardson, the manager, dive straight on him, give him CPR. I'd be the first to admit I froze on the spot. It was pretty surreal. And he's had a really, really tough 6 months, loads of, ups and a lot more downs, loads of operations, and he's been through hell. And he's looking, touch wood, like he's coming through the other side of that now. The plan is to build up his fitness now and get ready for pre-season and hopefully be ready to start the season. So if you'd have told me that was going to happen in November, I told Charlie that, I'm sure he'd have snapped your hand off for it. So yeah, he's in a good place. He's in a good place, and hopefully now we can enjoy his summer with his family, his wife Chelsea, and little boy Albion, and look forward to next season.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm sure all the Sunderland fans will echo that. It's good to see him back up and running, and we'll wish him all the best. Well, let's get into the I'm already nervous. The nerves are kicking in before the weekend. But as you well know, we have our biggest game probably since our last playoff final back in May 2019 against Charlton. I mean, just going back to that season and the run of games leading up to the playoffs in that season under Jack Ross. I mean, we only, looking back, we only won 1 of the final 7 games of the season. And I remember from a fan's perspective, we were a little bit flat because we missed out on the automatics and we weren't in great form. I mean, can you remember it being a similar atmosphere for the playoffs, for the players in the build-up to the playoffs that year?
Do you know what, Chris? It's funny, really, this week has probably been the first time I've sort of had a little bit of time to reflect on obviously the 3 years obviously I had at Sunderland. And I think out of all 3, looking back, I think obviously that first season sort of haunts and disappoints me the most, because I felt like that squad should have comfortably won the league. Obviously we never. I think once the realisation that automatics had got away from us, I think was it Southend away last game of the season, we knew we couldn't go up, so obviously that was factored in. The Fleetwood away game, I think it was Fleetwood away, we sort of knew it had got away from us, and it was quite hard at that time. When you're going into games knowing you can't get promoted, you do shift your mindset to, right, okay, we've got the playoffs coming up in a few weeks. Now, obviously, we want to win every game as a footballer, But yeah, I remember in the running, there was actually, once the season was done, it was like, right, this is where we're at now. Let's go and win the playoffs. And there was still that sort of freshness about the squad that, you know what, if we go and win the playoffs now, it's still been a success. We've been promoted. That was the aim for everyone at the start of the season. And obviously we went into the 2 games against Portsmouth. And it's funny because obviously I play with Tom Naylor and Jack Watmore now, who were at Portsmouth. And the pair of us both said, like, we speak now and think that season we'd obviously had the league games, the Checker Trade final, another 2 games. And I think Portsmouth were top for a large amount of that season. And it was almost like the pair of us both teams found themselves in the playoffs, knowing really that probably both should have went up automatically if they'd had, obviously continued the good form, which we never in the end. So playing each other, it was almost probably a bit like the way Chef Wednesday and Sunderland felt. Obviously, the other night, I think Chef Wednesday have had a good season, but someone's got to miss out. You get to that point, and unfortunately, like I said, it would have dawned on both sets of players and fans the evening. Let me tell you, I was relieved. For the first time, I thought, I was on holiday thinking, I'm glad I'm not involved in the playoffs, because it's, no matter what anyone says, it's the funny games. Anything can happen. A lot of pressure riding on them. You have to quickly get rid of the disappointment of not getting up for automatic. And I think that's probably leading into this playoff campaign for Sunderland now. It's probably the best form Sunderland have got into a playoff campaign in the last, obviously, 3 years. So, that mindset and that sort of mentality the players will have at the moment, I think that'll stand everyone in good stead for the weekend. I really do.
So, thinking back to almost having to pick yourself up after being on that bad form under Jack Ross at the time, do you think that's going to be a big element for this current squad, that they're in good form? Because the other side of the argument is it's a one-off game and it's a final, so how much does that actually count?
I think this time around, because I think, the automatics obviously was still on for Sunderland this season for a large part. And I think it was even up until the Plymouth game. I remember looking at the league table and thinking, if Sunderland win away at Plymouth today and results go, it could still be on. And it's that sort of hope that kills you. But realistically, it was going to be a tall ask and tall order, should I say. In that running, it looked like it was always going to be between Wigan, Rotherham and MK Dons. So I think maybe the fact that automatics may not have been in anyone's mind at Sunderland leading in, it was just, right, let's finish the season well and let's just focus on the playoffs. I think a bit like you look at MK Dons now, to go to Plymouth away and win 5-0, and still not go up and finish on 9 points, no matter how strong mentally you are, you're coming off that pitch at Plymouth going, we've got to pick ourselves up here. What a season we've had and we've missed out. And, you could see it happening a mile off. you just know, always that team that finishes third a lot of the time always seems to come up short.
Yeah, that's it. Just quickly as well on those semi-finals against Portsmouth, I just wanted to mention the cracking kind of goalless draw at Fratton Park, because you became fully acquainted with the locals after Luke O'Nien got shoved in the stand. But it seemed like that one, looking back at that squad that we had, the likes of yourself, Lee Cattermole, Chris Maguire, seemed like you were, that's a sort of battle that you lads loved at the time.
That team and squad, Chris should have got promoted. There's no two ways about that. Was it 19 draws? I think it was that season, which obviously, ultimately cost us in the end. To be low, everyone will always have their opinions, Chris, and there's no sort of set moments that I look back and think, well, saying that, there is a few sort of games that you go, I remember scoring a Peterborough away, I think it was in the 87th minute. And I think, I remember going back to the halfway, I'm thinking, we're going up here. And then, I think it was Matt Godden scored in the 92nd. And you talk about going from here to there in minutes. The Coventry at home game was wild, 5-4. Another game where you just look back and think, wow. Well, for me, I think, and this is clearly obviously just my opinion, because I think that season, I strongly believe if we hadn't sold Josh Madger in January, I think we'd have landed on more side of wins in them draws, because the lad was winning games for us. When them games were tight, your 0-0s, your 1-1s, he's just a goal scorer, and he was deciding games for us at that point. And, that's nothing against, the other strikers at the time. But, Josh was having that type of season where in obviously campaigns I've been promoted before, you know, more often than not, you get a goal scorer or someone who scores 20 plus goals, you've got a right chance of getting promoted. And I think Josh was on maybe 16, 17 goals by January. So to lose him at that time was, for me, criminal. But football.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we did make it at Wembley. A lot is made of Sunderland's record at Wembley. I mean, I was guilty of that in the introduction, but we always seem to have this existential crisis as a set of fans when we reach Wembley for some reason, especially for playoff final games. But for the players, I mean, in the build-up, I mean, does that have any impact on the players?
For me personally, Chris, in not one of the Wembley games did anything that had happened in the past bother me. I can only speak for myself. I guess it's only natural for the fans to think about it and talk about it because it's there to see, you know. And then, you know, I look back on the three Wembley trips I had. You know, to lose on penalties. You know, you're seeing how Chelsea must feel about they took Liverpool all the way 120 minutes in 2 cup finals this season and lost both games on penalties. Obviously, the playoff one. Again, talking before about having time to reflect and look back on the missed opportunities. Obviously, I've had, you know, for me, that one still haunts me. Well, and always will, because I was injured and my day was done after 27 seconds. It wasn't until, funny enough, I never ever watched the game back because obviously I didn't want to see it. But it was on. I always remember during lockdown, it was the game come on Sky playoff. You know, the Sky Sports football. It was like playoff classic. And I was like, oh, let's have a look. And obviously it was our game, and I obviously turned it on. I knew I'd got injured early because I knew I was off the pitch within 10 minutes, but I didn't realise it was 27 seconds. My day was done, and I was like, wow. I look back and think, you know, I felt I finished that season in pretty good form, and I had a bit of a bite about me where started the season well. Obviously, look back, I had the red cards, dip in form. I'm fought back, lost my place. Obviously, we signed Grant in the January, and Jack Ross went with Grant and Katz for a while, and I was in and out of the team. But then I remember getting back in the team. I don't remember what game it was, but I got back in the side in the running, and I felt like I was in a really good place mentally, and I thought, right, I want to finish this season well. And even today, you know, I still look back and think, what could have been? I remember, I was just having my flashbacks of. For that 10 minutes, ankle was ruined after 27 seconds, by the way. I think it was like a grade 3 rupture of the ligaments. Sort of summed my season up. I'd never been injured, never had an injury in my career. And, you know, that was really hard to deal with, to then sit on the bench and then obviously in a big booth and to concede the last kick of the game. That, you know, it was just, like I said, because the playoffs finished, I went away on holiday, and then before you know it, you were back into training. And I think it was just one of them instances where you just try to park it, not think about it. And it's only been probably this summer where, like I said, I've had time now to sort of look back, and obviously because I'm not involved in the football club anymore, to look back on what went on and reflect on things. And obviously with the build up to the playoff final again this week, obviously it's brought back memories. And there was no way in my head we were losing that game that day. I'm not saying I went off the pitch and that was the reason why, but I just felt I'd finished the season strong. We had a lot about us, and I was playing a bit advanced. I think it was Katz and Grant as a 2, and I was a bit pushed on. That as obviously I'm not an out-and-out number 10, but someone in there to run around and press and get in the box, and I was enjoying that role. And like I say, to have your day over after 27 seconds, you know, that just adds to 3 years at Sunderland that probably, you know, just added to things that didn't quite go right.
It's funny you should mention that. I mean, obviously, we were talking about it earlier on with some of the lads, and we were all saying how much that disrupted us early on and kind of stopped our rhythm. But, I mean, just going back to the build-up, I mean, obviously, Sunderland fans took over the capital the night before. I was reading an article earlier on today when you were talking about the fans meeting you at King's Cross and surprising even some of the senior players. I mean, can that sort of reaction, you know, from the fans and that sort of build-up, can that work both ways, where some players love it and they're motivated and other players just feel more pressure?
Yeah, I mean, again, Chris, I can only speak for myself. I remember, I think it was the Checker Trade final where obviously we stepped off the train, and I just remember this noise, and obviously with King's Cross the way it built and the echo, I was like, whoa, you know, it was like goosebump airs on the next type of moments. And for me, I was just, like I said, like I wasn't nervous for any of the. Saying that, the most nervous I was the one we won, because it was almost an element of Sunderland Football Club playing Tranmere Rovers, a League Two side. Everything was all the past record was getting brought up, and it was probably the first time I was going to Wembley for the third time off the back of 2 defeats. So it was probably the first time I was a bit like, oh, we need to win this one today. You know what I mean? We can't afford to miss today. You know, and again, I look back at my time at Sunderland, Chris, and I think probably the best bit of success I had, that real moments where I get to lift the trophy, there's no one in the ground. You know what I mean? No one in the ground. So, you know, I look back sometimes, I think, you know, maybe, obviously, you know, I'll cherish that moment, but sometimes you just get a feeling that some things aren't meant to be. And yeah, I look back at my time at Sunderland, and you know, I really did enjoy it. It was tough because, you know, it was free season really, where we've come up short and there was disappointments. So that was always tough to deal with. And like I said, it's probably only been this summer where the season's finished again, and you just go, it's probably been, like I said, the first time I've looked back and had time to reflect and not been involved in the playoffs. And don't get me wrong, because I'd be lying if I said it. It's not. It's a bit easier to do after you've just won the league. You know, so it has been a bit of an easier summer for once. But yeah, it'll be winning at Wembley for me. I think it'll always be a great moment for me, but I'll never be able to quite fully enjoy it, because I came to Sunderland fully expecting to get promoted and wanting to get promoted, and obviously it didn't happen. So that'll be something I'll always have to sort of deal with and look back on with a bit of regret.
Well, like we said, you've done it 3 times, played for Sunderland at Wembley 3 times. I mean, you know, how did the squads prepare for the build up for those games, playing in those games of that size at Wembley? I mean, did the squads did they get away for it all for a few days? And what do you think the ideal preparation is for a game of this size?
I think ideally, because you want to keep it as normal as possible. And by that I mean just treat it like, although it's not any other game, everyone knows it's a final, everyone knows the importance of it. But for me, as a footballer personally, I hate change. Like, I'm very, very like rich. All my, like, everything I do every week is the same. I wear the same undies, the same socks. I am pretty superstitious as well in the fact that I like everything spot on. Same. I like to eat at the same time, eat the same thing. If we lose, I maybe might change what I bet. But I think for the lads building up this week, I think the good thing is Alex Neil, who's, by the way, obviously looks as if it's been an outstanding appointment. You know, regardless of what happens Saturday, I think if Sunderland stick with him, that they've got a really good manager, someone who's been there and done it. And I think that's important this week. Obviously, he's been promoted with Norwich at Wembley in the playoffs, hasn't he? So I think that experience as a manager will be huge. And I look at the team, and I've watched them obviously closely. I've been on the receiving end of 2 defeats this season as well. So there's some very good players in there. Because I look at the front 4, I think that's as good as anything in the Championship, never mind League One, with, you know, Roberts, Clark, Pritchard and Big Roscoe. And I think, Chris, you know, the biggest thing for me for Sunderland is Bailey Wright looks back to his best as well. I think Bailey's one of the best centre-halves in the division when he's fully fit. That's why we tried to sign him last summer. Another one of my aging operations that I didn't manage to pull off. But I think Bailey's in a real good place. And, you know, you talk about this and looking back, you know, losing Josh Madger in the first season was huge. And I think losing Bailey Wright at Oxford away to injury under Phil Parkinson, although the season obviously got cut short. I remember at that time, you know, we had a real settled back 3 in Jordan Willis, Bales and Flano. And I think Bailey being at the centre of that was massive to us, and losing him at the time, you know, no disrespect to any of the other lads who stepped in, but like I said, I think Bailey's one of the best centre-halves in the league when he's fit.
Yeah, he was absolutely immense at Hillsborough, you know, kind of blood pouring down his face.
Yeah, I text him, I give him a bit of stick about that. He loves all that bit of blood. He was only missing the headband. Terry Butcher if he'd had the headband. But yeah, I mean, just on Wembley and the experience of playing at Wembley,
I mean, there's quite often you hear former players or players saying that it feels like it's such a big pitch and it drains your legs. I mean, does it actually have that effect when you play there?
That pitch is massive, Chris. Yeah, that pitch is massive. And it's funny because when obviously I come on, I didn't start against Portsmouth. My day was done after 27 seconds against Charlton. And obviously I played against Tranmere. So obviously I could only really take it from the Tranmere game. And I remember coming off the pitch, I'm thinking, wow, like everyone was knackered that day. Now, I remember Lee Johnson, to be fair, we had a meeting before the Tranmere game and he put up the pitch dimensions of Wembley and the Stadium of Light. And I don't think there's much in it. I can't remember. Wembley's bigger than the Stadium of Light, but not by much. But either he's got it wrong or... But I remember coming up after the Tranmere game, obviously speaking with the sports scientists after the game, the lads who, obviously wear the GPS units. I felt as if I'd ran about 12k, big numbers. And it was actually one of the smallest outputs as a team we'd made that season. Now, you come off the pitch and that was the tiredest I've felt, by the way. So whether it's just the whole emotion of playing in a final, and like I said, the Tranmere final dawned on me a little bit more than the other two because I thought I can't afford to lose this game today because I had 100 lads from Birkenhead messaging me wanting Tranmere to win. So I was already getting a bit of stick. And like I said, it was obviously I was captain at this point, so I felt a lot more responsibility. And like I said, I wanted to lift the trophies. So yeah, that one kicked in on it. I think, I hope that I don't know what the weather forecast is like this week, but I looked at the Liverpool and Chelsea players Saturday and I thought, it looked red hot. The pitch is massive. That's an FA Cup final. I think it's just the whole experience. I think cup finals have that, obviously they have that different feel and there's more riding on it. I'll tell you a story actually, and this sort of sums up sort of what I'm saying. So for the Charlton game playoff final, bearing in mind, I've never been late for a team meeting in my career, Chris, not once. So I remember waking up Saturday morning, Charlton game, I was buzzing. I was up early, round breakfast, couldn't sit still, watching we stayed in the Hilton Hotel right next to the stadium. So, obviously you're watching everyone turn up and the numbers are growing and everything. And I remember saying obviously I roomed with Charlie Wyke. I said to Wyke, right, we'll have a quick nap now. We've got a meeting in an hour's time. Let's have a nap. Obviously I'll set my alarm and we'll go down to the meeting. So my phone starts going and it was the old secretary, Brett. I was like, that's strange. Why is Brett ringing me? I went, hello, hi Brett. He was like, where are you, Max? I was like, I'm in bed. He was like, the meeting started 2 minutes ago. I went, no way. He went, and I looked at my phone and honestly, what I mean, I was like, I couldn't believe it. Genuinely, I've never missed a meeting in my life. And I think the point I'm making is, I think it was all that nervous energy and build-up that just went boom. And I remember saying to Chad, I was like, why, Chad, jump, get up, we're late. I was like, so when Brett said that, I said, please tell, I said, I'm coming now. I was in my undies, gear on dead quick, sprinted out the room. I just remember looking at Jack Ross' face and thinking, the manager doesn't need me and Charlie Wyke walking into this meeting late. But like I said, I've never been late for a meeting in my career. And I think when you talk about Wembley and all the build-up, I think that's just the type of thing, like that sort of build-up and that nervous energy of, I'd been awake since 7 o'clock, pacing around the room, pitching how the game was going to go. And so, yeah, it sort of added to my stinker of a day. Late to a meeting for the first time in my career. Luckily only by a minute, but still not ideal. And then injured after 27 seconds. So someone clearly didn't want me to have a good day that day.
It's just adrenaline crashes, isn't it? I guess the whole day of
it. I remember just like looking outside and just watching everyone turn up and thinking, get me on that pitch. Obviously, I hadn't started in the final against Portsmouth. So, like I said, I went into the playoff, that campaign, just really excited, thinking I've never experienced the playoffs before. And this is, I thought, right, I've had a bit of an up and down season. I want to finish this with a bang. And like I said, it was taken out of my hands really, really early. So, football.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned it earlier on, but the one that we won when we won the Papa John's Trophy, how much shine, was taken off by the fact that, there was no fans there because it was, the club where you started, it was Tranmere.
Yeah.
I imagine you would have had a bunch of people there who you knew from Tranmere. Sunderland fans weren't there, so you lifted the trophy in front of a pretty much an empty stadium. And so how much did that actually take off that experience?
Yeah, a lot, Chris. Yeah, because for me, everyone had had a difficult time during lockdown, 12 months or whatever it was at home, a full season without fans. I mean, again, it's sort of like, I look back and think, at my time at Sunderland, and I just think, again, it just screams at me. It's like, it was just one of them, it was just a period, obviously, in my career, which I look back and think, maybe it just wasn't meant to be. To not have anyone in the stadium when you lift a trophy, it was again, we had the euphoria of lifting it. It was like a bit more than anything that we'd won at Wembley, and then it was literally back on the train and get ready for Accrington. It was weird that we played Accrington both times after both finals. So yeah, it was. Yeah, it did take a shine off it, but like I said, if these things happen, it's football, and like I said, these times now I can reflect on it. I look back at the photos and think, we won at Wembley, but no one there, behind in the stadium. Yeah. But what it is. It's what it is.
Well, going into the weekend's game, we're obviously playing Wycombe Wanderers. Wigan beat Wycombe 3-1 at Adams Park back in February. You were playing in the middle of the park that day. You also played against Sunderland in February when we won 3-0 at the DW, which was Alex Neil's first win, but he was only 3 games into the job. So, I mean, you played against both sides, but, I mean, do you think, looking at the game, it's going to be a case of Sunderland having most of the possession and Wycombe looking for a break or a set piece? Or do you think it's going to go along those lines? I mean, what type of game do you expect?
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at, you look at both teams, Chris, and I think for me, and this is no disrespect to Wycombe at all, I think they've got some very good players and a very good manager and very much a different style to what Sunderland will bring. But for me, I look player for player, and I think Sunderland have got the better players. Again, if there's one team, though, who can upset a game and cause issues and problems and are comfortable without the ball, it is Wycombe. I think if it was a Sunderland MK Dons final now, you'd be going, the 2 teams who like to get the ball down and pass, and it'd be a case of who's going to play the better football on the day. I think Wycombe are very experienced, and before, by the way, I meant no disrespect to them by saying, Sunderland for me have got the better players. I stand by that, but I do think Wycombe can cause any team problems, and like I said, they are comfortable without the ball. For me, I'm not going to sit on the fence and think. I do think Sunderland will win the game on Saturday. I think there's a few factors for me. I think one, the manager, Alex Neil. I think he's been there and done it. I've watched his interviews and the way he carries himself. He looks very much like in control of the whole situation. He looks like the leader of the club, and I think players will draw confidence from that. Secondly, I think, like I touched on before, I think the front 4 would comfortably cause problems in the division above. Patrick Roberts, Pritchard, Clark, they're all very good technical players. And Ross has had a really good season. Ross can do a bit of everything. And again, I think, the fact that Bailey Wright's in such good form, I just, it's tough for me. It's tough to see anything other than a Sunderland win. I don't want to jinx it. So before I get everyone slating me on Twitter like usual, I'm blaming me on Saturday evening if it doesn't go well. I think I'll turn my phone off. But yeah, I do see a Sunderland win. But I do think Wycombe can cause anyone problems and know how to slow it down, make it very bitty and drag you into their type of game. So it'll be interesting. I'm over in Ibiza, so I'll find a bar to watch it in. And like I say, I think over the course of this season, Chris, I think anyone who knows me on a personal level knows, I've got no ill feeling towards Sunderland whatsoever. Obviously I've moved on, and that's football. And I'll always, I look back at my time at Sunderland. I'm gutted it didn't go how I wanted it to. But obviously I'll be rooting for the lads on Saturday, and I'm just glad I'm not involved, to be honest.
Sure, if you're now both, you'll be joined by a few Sunderland fans in whatever bar you're in. I'm sure they'll be over there. But we'll just push for time, so I'll just quickly end with because obviously I said in the introduction that you're only one of 3 Sunderland captains to taste victory at Wembley, and I'm sure you've got plenty of years left as a professional player still to come. But that must feel pretty good to have on the CV.
Yeah, again, Chris, until you hear someone say that. Like you said before, it is something I'm proud of, and I think the way my sort of Sunderland career ended, it left obviously a bitter taste in my mouth in terms of not from obviously not renewing a contract. I mean, from not having success. I always remember, well, it'll be 4 years ago, nearly 4 years ago now, getting on the M62, looking at, obviously I'd been informed that a bid had been accepted. Went on Google, typed in Sunderland squad, seen the players that were there. I thought I didn't envisage 4 years later Sunderland being still being League One, should I say. But again, it's football, isn't it? No one's got any divine right to get promoted. I think it's the fact that we've always come close, just not close enough. Like I touched on earlier, because I think that the main one for me that disappoints me is the first campaign with the squad of players we had. We should have got promoted that season, and I think the fact that we never then sort of snowballed into seasons, and then manager changes, player turnover again. It was so many factors. We could sit here for all night, and things would pop up, and you'd say, "What about this? What about that?" Ultimately, now I think it's again the situation where it's a one-off game, and I obviously hope Sunderland get promoted and everyone can go back to booing me next season. Stadium of Light, I'll come back and take a bit more stick.
Well, you've said it now. You've said it's locked in. We're going up. Quote Max Power, we're going up. It's this time around. So we'll say no more. So, like I said, we'll push for time, Max. So I just want to say thank you very much, Max. We really appreciate your time, and thanks for joining us. And enjoy your summer. Thanks
for having me on, Chris. And like I say, genuinely, I hope the lads do it on Saturday, and you can all have a real. I'm sure it'll be a real good night if all goes to plan.
Yeah, I think we're just all going to spontaneously combust. I think if we win, I don't think we'll know what to do ourselves, to be honest.
I'm sure it'll be a quiet night in London if there's a promotion.
Yeah, that's it. I've got my room booked. But good stuff, and all the best in the championship next year as well, Max. Cheers.
Cheers, Bob. Great to see you, mate.
Brilliant. Cheers. And thanks again for everyone for listening. We're going to keep building up to the weekend on the website at ROKER Report, of course, and look out for the new pods during our wrap up to the new season. But from us, it's bye for now.